Hi there, I'm Jan Potgieter, and today I want to talk to you about making sure that you optimize the likelihood of getting the best raise when you want to ask for a raise, or to make sure that you're getting paid the optimal amount if you're in the interview process and maybe entering the phase of salary negotiation as part of your interview process. So let's start by looking at the definition of negotiation, right? So we're talking about salary negotiation here. Now, the word negotiate, it really means to do business. If you look at the definition of the word in the original Latin, it literally means whatever it is that you're doing that isn't leisure. So in the modern day, unfortunately, we've modern management theory that comes from the 70s has divided the organization up into all these different silos, if you will. And it's very important. Of course, there's good reason behind it, because we have these fantastically big organizations with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people working for them. And so you need structure. And so we have the finance department, and we have the HR department, and we have the sales department, the procurement department, the legal department. But all of these people are negotiating, right? So we're not just negotiating when we're selling, we're not just negotiating when we're buying. When we're doing business, we're effectively negotiating. So it's important to understand this as concept. So in other words, your salary negotiation doesn't start when you start talking about the money that you're going to get paid, right? Your salary negotiation starts the moment you first interact with your counterpart. So whether it's the recruitment agent, whether it's the first person that interviews you, or whether it's your boss that you're going to do some kind of performance review and you want to ask for a raise, recognize that the negotiation actually starts the first moment that you interact with them, because we're going to frame the conversation, we control the context within which we want to negotiate. We use something we call anchoring to make sure that we control the reference point for the discussion. So in the context of salary negotiation, we want to make sure that we do all these things. The first very important point to understand is why it is that your boss or anybody would give you a raise. I mean, you'd probably agree with me that if you're doing the same as what you used to do, you're probably going to get paid what you used to get paid, right? If you want to get an increase, it should mean that you've increased something, right? That you've added, that you've expanded. There's no reason why you should get an increase just because another year has gone by, right? And maybe prices have increased or something. If you're not adding additional value, then it'd be very difficult to make a case for an increase, right? So human nature also says one of the key principles that motivate us is the principle of reciprocity, right? And the principle of reciprocity, which is universal across cultures, doesn't matter where you are in the world, this principle applies. Basically, it says we return to others the form of behavior that they exhibit towards us, right? So if I'm nice to you, probably you're going to be nice to me. If I'm rude and impolite to you, probably you're going to return the favor. If I make a concession towards you, probably you'll consider making a concession towards me. If I really want to understand what makes you tick, what motivates you, probably you'll be more interested in what motivates me. So this is a key principle that we need to invoke, you see, because there are two approaches that you can fundamentally take in the context of trying to convince somebody to move in your direction, right? One is that you hit them with the evidence. So once again, if we just get back to the definition of negotiation, and you might wonder what all this means in the context of salary negotiation, but it'll become clear in a moment. And once you understand this, it becomes so much easier for you to implement it, right? So rather than just following something and checking every box, I'm trying to bring across understanding here, because if the penny drops, you'll not only be able to apply this in your salary negotiations, but you'll be able to apply it across any other negotiation that comes across your table, right? So the key thing is to understand that there's also a difference between litigation and negotiation, right? We have litigation, we have arbitration, mediation, negotiation. Litigation basically means I lead with my evidence, you respond with your evidence, but now it's very hard for us to reach agreement, right? Now we need a third party, now we need a judge or a jury. In the business world, we need to escalate. We need to go up the executive chain of command, if you will, and find somebody who can help us to either make a decision, or to make a concession, or to somehow help us to resolve that matter of litigation, if you will, rather than that matter of negotiation. So in your mind, understand litigation, I lead with the evidence. Problem is, when I lead with the evidence, principle of reciprocity says you're most likely to respond with your own evidence, right? And your evidence is most likely to contradict mine. So the research is pretty clear on this. Whenever people lead with evidence, contrary to what you might think, you are actually less likely to convince them to move in your direction, right? You're more likely to make them entrenched in their position. I always say, in your mind, think about it. If you want to reach agreement with somebody, picture that you're in a room, right? And let's say it has four corners, and you're kind of diagonally across from each other, each of you in a corner. And the idea is you want to meet somewhere in the middle of the room. What you don't want to do is pin your counterpart to their wall through the arguments that you're presenting, right? That you're throwing all this evidence at them that just keeps them pinned in their corner. No, you want to create opportunity for them to be able to move in your direction to meet you in the middle of the room, if you will. So you always have to think of ways that you can create space for your counterpart to move in your direction, right? So you may have heard of the word or the term saving face, or allowing people the opportunity to maintain their credibility. This is very, very important. If you want people to move in your direction, you have to allow them the opportunity to save face, because human nature says that if I'm going to sacrifice my credibility, if I'm going to lose face, I would rather lose myself than sacrifice my credibility, right? So even if you might be proposing something that makes sense for me, if me agreeing with you will cause me to lose face, to sacrifice my credibility, I most likely will prefer to lose out than to sacrifice my credibility. So it's a very important point to also understand. Now, if I bring all of this back to salary negotiation, what this means is that you should never lead with the evidence. So most people will tell you, a lot of people will tell you with salary negotiations that you should be doing market research, and of course you should, and you should find reference points or benchmarks for what people earn, with your experience, with your qualifications, etc. And it's important that you do all these things, but you never want to lead with these points of evidence, right? Because when you lead with the evidence, you're going to incentivize your counterparty to disagree with you. Here's a much different way, quite counterintuitive, but a much easier way for you to get a raise or to get paid what you want to get paid. Start by looking at how you can satisfy the needs of your boss. You see, most people go about this the completely wrong way. They lead with the evidence, or they find the evidence to support their case, and then they go challenge their boss. And they lead with the evidence, and they try to convince them as to all the reasons why they should be paid more, why they should have an increase, why their job should be changed, their responsibilities, etc. Instead of trying to understand what motivates their counterpart, what motivates their boss, effectively. Think about this. If you're able to meet the needs of your boss, if you can satisfy their interests, the principle of reciprocity states that they will be far more likely to be willing to meet your interests. So here's what you do. You go sit down with your boss, and you tell your boss, you say to your boss, listen, let's just assume you're earning, let's just say you're earning $50,000 a year, just to have a number that we can talk about, and you wish to earn $60,000 a year. Then go see your boss and say to your boss, listen, I need to earn more money. I would ideally, target $65,000 as the amount that I need to earn for the next year, based on what I'm prepared to do, the additional investment I'm prepared to make, the changes that I can make to the outcomes. But what I want to make sure is that I put that effort in line with where you want me to spend the effort. So you tell me, what is it that I can do to get my income from $50,000 to go to $65,000 over the next year? But keep in mind, I'll be happy with $60,000. I'm specifically asking for more than $60,000 now. I'm asking for $65,000 so that I have the ability to make a concession if I need to, right? And then I'll ask my boss to explain to me what it is that needs doing to be able to reach that target. And they will share with you what it is that you can do. And then you agree with them maybe what the key performance indicators are, or what the roadmap items could be as you map out a roadmap maybe over the next 12 months, so that you can then stop in maybe once every quarter, every 3 months with them, and check your progress against the achievement of those targets, right? There's a few principles that come into play when you go about it that way. Number one, when you sit your boss down and you ask them about their interests, this is the right kind of reciprocity that you're going to provoke, right? You're demonstrating that you're invested in meeting their goals and objectives rather than just pursuing your own goals and objectives, right? And that's going to make them more willing to promote your goals and objectives. If you sit there and you try to prove them wrong and you argue with them about the increase that you believe that you deserve, what you're doing is you're just incentivizing them to go find the evidence not to pay you, right? This is the same thing. If you're stuck in an airport and a flight's delayed, and I mean, whenever, or you're in a hotel and something's gone wrong, whenever you go in and you claim based on your status that you need some kind of resolution or you need some kind of special treatment, what you're really just doing is incentivizing that counterpart to go find the evidence, to go look at the policies and procedures and find the reasons not to help you, right? So it's the worst approach. You never want to claim on the evidence, unless, of course, you're litigating. If you're in court, that's the way that you want to do it, right? If you want to prove your counterpart wrong, you lead with the evidence. But if you want the cooperation, it's the worst possible thing that you could do, is to try to prove them wrong with the evidence. So make sure you involve them in shaping that picture of the future of your increased earnings, and you also create a vision in their mind of what needs to happen for you to be able to earn more. And when you then help them to satisfy their needs, guess what they're going to do? They're going to be willing to promote you. They're going to be willing to give you an increase. They will be an advocate on your behalf because you're an advocate on their behalf. So that's the key way to go in there. Let me give you some insights also just on that conversation. Remember, we talk about framing and we talk about anchoring. Now, for that discussion that you want to set up with your boss, let's just assume you're already in a job and you want to go ask for a raise or negotiate a raise with your boss. You should set up a meeting. Very important how you frame that meeting. So what is a frame? A frame it's literally like a picture frame, right? It both contains as well as constrains the subject matter. If you imagine a picture, you can see it, both the frame surrounds it, but it also contains the picture. Now, this is the same thing we want to do when we go into this specific salary negotiation, right? Because we want to create a strong frame, not a weak frame. So there's always a frame, and the way we distinguish between the two is by either seeing if it's strong or weak, and how we tell the difference is we know a strong frame is some kind of statement we make, let's say at the beginning of a meeting, that's in line with the expected outcome of that meeting. So I might start a meeting, let's say with my boss up front saying, you know what, I'm here today, I just kind of want to talk to you about developments and how I'm feeling things are working out for me at the company, etc. But now you have in mind you want to talk about a salary negotiation. But what I've done now, I've started with a very weak frame. And the problem with the weak frame is that you see this statement, I actually want at the end of this meeting to have some kind of decision on what can be done for me to get a salary increase. But I've not said that in my opening statement. So now my boss and my counterpart, they're not on notice that this is what I want to talk about. They might think I want to talk about something else, that I'm just there generally to shoot the breeze, not because I'm there because I want an increase in my salary. And that can, sometimes in itself promote or provoke a defensive response because they're not sure why this point is coming up now when they think that you were there to discuss something else. So my recommendation is you go with a strong frame. So something like, in this meeting, at the end of this meeting, I'd like for us to agree on the ways or on a pathway for me to be able to earn 15% more on my salary. Boom. That's a nice strong frame. So now everybody's on notice about what it is that you want to achieve in this meeting, and you've used the 15%. Let's say you were after a 10% increase, but now I've anchored it at 15%. So I've had high aspirations. I've gone a little bit beyond what I need to, or what I would like to receive, which is 10%, by anchoring it at 15%. So going a little bit beyond that, because of course when they say no to 15%, I can still make concessions. I can go from 15%, maybe say, okay, well, if you can't do 15%, if we can't agree on that, can we do 13.5%? Or can we do 12%? Or can we do 11%? So we leave ourselves room to moderate our expectations and hopefully still come out ahead of the 10% increase that we're targeting, right? So it's also a key principle that we always go beyond a little bit, or a little bit beyond what it is we expect to achieve, so that we enable ourselves to be able to make concessions, because what will provoke concessions from your counterpart are concessions that you're prepared to make, right? This is reciprocity in action. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is you want to go make a list of all the things that are potentially valuable to you, right? So when it comes to salary, or salary negotiation, there's so many elements. Do you have to work a 5-day week? Maybe you could work a 4.5-day week. Maybe there's half a day a week that you can take off. Maybe there's some continued professional development that you want to do. Maybe there's a degree that you want to enroll for. Maybe your company has a policy that helps them to pay or promotes paying towards your further education. So these are all requests that you can ask for. You can ask for additional time off, paid time off. You can ask for a sabbatical maybe somewhere down the line. Your imagination is really the only limit to what you can ask, right? So come up with many different options, because here's the truth also. Negotiation becomes easier the more things there are to negotiate. So the more options we have, the easier the negotiation becomes. If we're just in that one dimension and we say, listen, we just need an increase on this salary, and we only have that one dimension, it becomes harder. But if we could say, listen, we want the increase, and we're also interested in receiving funding for additional studies, and I'd also like some more time, paid time off, or I'd like to work fewer hours per week. We bring a lot more options to the table, which can bring flexibility, which allows our counterpart also not just to say yes and no to one dimension, but to consider many different options, and maybe to pick some of those options that suit them better than if there was just one option available. So this is also, it's one of the principles of persuasive communication, right? If you can give people options, it's always a good idea to give them 3 options if you can, with the one that you wish for them to pursue positioned in the middle. So, kind of, if you will, you have the, kind of the silver, the gold, and the platinum option, with the gold option, the one positioned in the middle being the one that you prefer for them to pick. So, in the context of salary negotiations, you could go see your boss and you could say that there are 2 or 3 potential scenarios. There's one scenario where you just get a 20% increase on your salary, and that's it. There's another one where you get a 15% increase on your salary, but you get 2 extra days leave a year, or you get 2 extra days paid time off a year. Or then there's a third option where you only get a 10% increase, but then they will pay for you to enroll for a 2 or a 3-year degree and pay X towards that. Do you see what I'm doing? And then in the middle, maybe you put the option that's your preferred option, which is the most likely one for them to select. So then they don't have to decide yes or no on whether they're giving you an increase, but it's rather on which package they're considering, which way the increase will be going. So there are any number of ways to approach this. Of course, the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure at the end of that conversation then that you summarize it, and that you send across some kind of email, or you get some kind of commitment. Maybe if you send an email across to your boss, then just saying, look, just summarizing the discussion we had would be amazing if you could just respond by confirming that your recollection was the same, or that this meets with your expectations, etc. And then you have a record of it, and you can go ahead and you can book in the review meetings. And it's also a persuasive principle that you're using. There's a principle of authority and commitment and consistency. In the sense that actually not authority as much as it is the principle of commitment and consistency, where your counterpart has now made a commitment to you to review your performance and to get you to that increase. So very difficult. Some people will say to you that you should claim for an increase to be instituted immediately, and that could be the case in some cases. But if you want to optimize the likelihood, if you want to get to an 80-90% likelihood of getting the increase that you want, then I recommend that you follow the process that I've explained to you. So let me just summarize it for you one last time. You're going to go make an appointment with your boss. You're going to explore their interest. Basically, the reason for the appointment is to understand how you can assist them in the achievement of their goals. You have a need to also earn more, and you know that through helping them to achieve their goals and objectives, that's the way that you can earn more, right? And so make sure that you have a strong frame to start that meeting, so that they put on notice and they know what it is that you're there to ask for, So, in this meeting, I'd like for us to, at the end of this meeting, agree on a way forward so that I can earn at least 15% more than what I'm earning currently. There you go. There's a strong frame. Then you want to make sure that you anchor your expectations. So let's say you're expecting, or you would like to ask for a 10% increase, you're going to ask for a 15% increase. So that if they say no, you still have the opportunity to moderate your expectation. If they say yes, well, you've got icing on your cake, right? But make sure that you leave yourself room to be able to make that concession if they say no to your request. Then make sure you also create lots of options, right? So it's not just money, but other things that are valuable to you. So days off, enrolling for further studies, etc., whatever it might be. And then make sure that you summarize and that you send them a written copy afterwards for them to agree to, and you're on your way to earning more.